In parts 1 and 2, we saw how native names were lived experiences, shaped by events, traits, and reputation. In this part, I'm going to look at how names worked in 3 very different cultures. We'll finish the Native American part and move on to English and Chinese, and what they reveal about identity. I've been reading the book The Killing of Crazy Horse by Thomas Powers. As mentioned in part 1 and part 2, I'll share some of the names from it. So here are some samples of some of them. American Horse, Sioux Jim, Coarse Voice Woman, Sitting Bear, Lone Bear, Iron Bear, Fast Thunder, Looks at Him, Big Crow, Two-Face, Blackfoot, Moonlight, Fool Elk, Shirt Wearer, Little Hawk, Iron Hawk, Big Road, He Dog, Iron Crow, Short Bull, Flying Hawk, Greasy Grass, Little Shield, Black Buffalo Woman, No Water, Holy Bald Eagle, Holy Buffalo, Conquering Bear, He Dog, Bad Heart Bull, Eagle, Elk, Spotted Crow, Ashes, Bullhead. Lots of bears. It is the biggest land predator in the Americas, so I guess it makes sense. I've gotten through less than half the book and already so many interesting names. And these are just focused on the conflict with the Plains Indians. Some names were beautiful. Moonlight, or Touch the Clouds. I'm guessing that was a tall guy. Or Leaping Water. You can just imagine a beautiful mountain stream with the water crashing down. Some names were strong, impressive. Sitting Bull, Crazy Horse, Conquering Bear, Two Lance. Some were descriptive. Watches him, or she watches him. Man that owns a sword. Little Big Man. Actually, apparently it was literally true. He was short and a big stocky guy. He would go to war, strip his shirt off, paint himself all red. Shirt Wearer. This wasn't really a name, it was more of a title given to distinguished civil leaders or war leaders. They also had names for the whites. Long Hair or Yellow Hair. That was the name they gave General Custer. 3 Stars. That was the name they gave to General Crook. He was a 3-star general. White Hat. This was the name they gave to Captain William Clark, who served under General Crook for his distinctive white felt hat. And some were just humorous. Coarse Voice Woman, that's probably one of my favorites. Young man, what are you doing over there? Just can imagine somebody talking like that. Gets fat with beef. Now the native people, they used to eat game. They would hunt and get deer or bison, and then they had to settle on the reservations and they were fed beef. Cows being like sedentary farm animals, they probably had a lot more fat in them, and I guess he just ate too much of it and he got fat. Gets fat with beef. Young man afraid of his horses. Apparently there was an old man afraid of his horses too. Whatever the name, it had a story attached to it. Now on a side note, most of the names that have remained well known or famous are ones associated with white people. For one, they kept written records, and so it got into the history. For another, they are most often leaders who at one point or another kicked ass with the US Army, and so are remembered. Or not battle, but they are associated with famous white history, like Sacagawea and the Lewis and Clark expedition. In this day and age, even native people have begun to lose the meaning associated with their names. But I think they've retained it a little bit more than others. Now, compare native names with Western. I'll use English as an example, as I speak English, and I assume most of you watching also do. English names also used to have meaning. If you go digging, you can find out a lot about your name. I did, and it's like a never-ending story. I'll get into it a little bit later. In English, family name or surname was often associated with what work you did. Miller, they operated the windmill or watermill. By the way, one of the first uses of wind or water power was grinding grain to make flour. Farmer, they did farming. Fisher, they caught fish. Smith, one of the most common names. They were a blacksmith, made things with metal. Baker, they made bread, had a bakery. Cook, they cooked food. Mason, they made things with stone or bricks. Fletcher, they were an arrow maker, from the French word flèche for arrow. Chandler, they were a candle maker, also from French, chandelle, which means candle. Carter, they drove carts. Sawyer, woodcutter, saw, ear. Fuller, they were a cloth thickener. That's an interesting one, I never heard about that. They would shrink and thicken the cloth. Tailor, they made clothes. Dyer, they were a person who dyes cloth. Glover, maker of gloves. Tanner, they were a person who tans hides to make leather. Barker, they were a tanner who specifically used bark for tanning. Carpenter, made things with wood. Butcher, prepared meat. Gardener or gardener, they worked in gardens or managed grounds. Cooper, that's my grandma's maiden name, maker of wooden caskets or barrels. Turner, they were a person who used a lathe to turn wood or metal. Potter, maker of pottery. Archer, a soldier who uses bow and arrows. Shepherd, they tend sheep. Parker, keeper of a private park. Chamberlain was a manager of a nobleman's estate. Sometimes the surname was a place or an occurrence, like Hastings, the place of the 1066 battle when William the Conqueror came over. Or a clan name, like my own, Gordon, which comes from a Scottish clan. And associated names like Atkinson, Connor, Edison, etc. Mac or Mc in front of the name come from Scottish or Irish Gaelic, meaning son of. So MacDonald would be the son of Donald. Mc or MC was used more by the Irish and is kind of an abbreviation of Mac, M-A-C, used more by the Scots. Now, given names in English often had roots in Germanic, Latin, Greek, or Hebrew. The English language came from a hodgepodge of many different languages, mainly Germanic, the Angles and the Saxons, and French. It ended up with, by far, one of the largest vocabularies of any language in the world, over 1 million words, though Korean and Tamil may have as many or even more. Apparently in Korean, they incorporate all kinds of technical terms, which added greatly to the vocabulary. With Tamil, I have no idea why they have so many words. But English also ended up with some of the dumbest spelling in the world as a result, and multiple meanings of words depending on context. There's actually a popular Finnish comedian, Ismo, and his whole thing is making fun of English. He's pretty funny, you should check him out. Now in English, like in many other cultures, people often choose the name of a famous or popular or an important person. My name, Edward, means wealthy protector from Old English, Anglo-Saxon. Aid means wealth, prosperity, fortune, and Weird means ward or protector or guardian. From Edward, you also have Ed, Eddie, Ned, Ted, Teddy, Edward, Eduardo, Edouard. There are also more kings named Edward than any other. 11, if you include before the Norman Conquest. One of the most famous, Edward I, or Edward Longshanks, also called Hammer of the Scots. Not very popular with the Scots, like my namesake, Gordon. Think of the movie Braveheart with Mel Gibson. He's that nasty king portrayed in that movie. Famous now, musicians like Ed Sheeran, or the late Eddie Van Halen, or actor Edward Norton, or Eddie Murphy, or Edward James Olmos, or Edward Jenner, the creator of the smallpox vaccine, which saved millions of people all around the world. Or Edward Teller, the one who created the H-bomb. That's like a big divergence there. My brother's name is Michael, from Hebrew, who is like God, or there is none like God. Me means who, Ka means like, El means God. Mikael, name of an archangel, leader of heaven's armies battling against Satan, protector against evil. From Michael, you have Mike, Mikey, Mick, Mickey, and even female names like Michelle, Michaela, Mila. Some famous ones, Michael Jackson, Michael Jordan, Mike Tyson, Michael J. Fox, Michael Phelps. My father's name, Richard. This is from Old German. Rik means ruler, power, king, and Hard means brave, strong, hardy. So brave ruler, or strong in rule, or powerful leader. It was brought over by the Normans. Most famous one, Richard I, or Richard the Lionheart of the Crusaders. From Richard, you have Rick, Ricky, Rich, Richie, Dick, Ricardo. Elizabeth, my late grandma's name. God's promise, from Hebrew, Elishiva. God is my oath. Name of the mother of John the Baptist. Very famous one, Elizabeth I, one of the most effective British monarchs. Named after her grandmothers, Elizabeth of York and Lady Elizabeth Howard, and also the late Queen Elizabeth II, one of the longest reigning monarchs in history, over 70 years. And from Elizabeth, lots of names. I'll just read off some of them. Betty, Betsy, Bessie, Libby, Beth, Liz, Lizzie, Lisa, Elisa, Elise, Ellie, Elle, Elsa, Isabel, Isabella, Bella, lots. William, meaning resolute protector or determined guardian. From the old High German name Wilhelm. From will, desire or will, and Helm, helmet or protection. The Germans use Wilhelm. Old Norse is Wilhjalmur. I don't know how to pronounce that. In French, Guillaume. Names taken from it: Bill, Billy, Will, Willie, Liam. Sophia, from ancient Greek, wisdom or knowledge. Think philosophy, Sophie. Sophie or Sophia has different spellings in Spanish or Italian, French or English, or Slavic. Grace originates from the Latin word gratia, meaning a bunch of things. I'll just read them off. Favor, thanks, blessing, elegance, charm, beauty, pleasing, agreeable. From grace comes Gracia, Graciela, Gracie, Gigi, and even for men, Grayson or Gray. Victoria, also from the Latin. It's the female version of Victor, victory, conqueror, or winner. It was super popular due to Queen Victoria, the queen at the height of the British Empire. Not only a lot of girls were named that, but a lot of cities, towns. Taken from Victoria, you have Vicky, Tori, Vic, Ria, Henry, meaning home ruler or ruler of the household. From Old German, Heimerich or Heinrich. Heim is for home, and Rich is for power or ruler. The second most number of kings is Henry. There are 8 of them, including probably the most famous one, Henry VIII, the one who killed his wives and broke with the Catholic Church. Derived from it, Harry, Hal, Hank. In French, it's Henri, and in Spanish or Italian, Rico or Enrico. Mary, one of the more popular names, is from Miriam in Hebrew, meaning beloved, bitterness, that's a strange one, rebellious, drop of the sea, very popular because of the mother of Jesus, or Mary Magdalene. James is of Hebrew origin, from Yaakov, which is Jacob. I wasn't sure about that one, meaning supplanter, or one who follows. It evolved through Latin, Jacomus, and Old French to become an English staple. It has the 3rd highest number of kings, if you include the Scottish kings. There are 7. Coming from James, you have Jim, Jimmy, Jamie, Jay. John comes from Hebrew, Yohanan or Yehohanan, meaning God is gracious. It was adapted to Greek, Ioannis, then adapted to Latin, Johannes, to Old French, Jean or Jean, to Old English, Johann, to Middle English, John. It's popular because of John the Baptist and John the Apostle, the one with the Gospel. In Spanish, you have Juan. In French, Jean. In Italian, Giovanni. In German, you have Johann or Johannes. In Irish, Sean. In Scottish, Ian or Ian. I'm not sure how you pronounce the second one. And in Russian, Ivan. Of course, you have Ivan the Terrible, probably the most famous one. All right, to move this along faster, I'm just going to read off the rest of the names. Other common Greek names: Chloe, which means blooming; Catherine, pure; Phoebe, bright, radiant; Daphne, laurel tree; Helen or Elena, shining light; Alexander, defender of men; Theodore, gift of God; Nicholas, victory of the people; George, farmer; and Andrew, manly; Leo or Leonidas, lion; and Hector, steadfast. Other common Latin names: Olivia, olive tree; Julia, supreme God; Dominic, of the Lord; Miles, soldier, Clara, clear or bright, and Amelia, Ava, Bella, Camila, Clara, Diana, Emily, Felicity, Gloria, Lillian, Olivia, Stella, Violetta or Violet, and Anthony, Christian, Dominic, Felix, Julian, Lucas, Marcus, Oliver, Sebastian, Victor. Other common Germanic names: Albert, Alfred, Alice, Arnold, Bertha, Charles or Carl, Conrad, Elsa, Emma, Frank or Franz, Margaret or Greta, Heidi, Louis or Ludwig, Matilda, Robert, Walter. They often reflect themes of strength, nobility, protection. Other common Hebrew names: Abraham, Benjamin, David, Daniel, Jacob, John, Joseph, Matthew or Matityahu. I didn't know that one. Noah, Rachel, Sarah. They're often rooted in biblical figures and meanings involving God. And finally, girls' names, like in lots of places, lots of flowers. So, Heather, Rose, Daisy, Lily, Violet, Jasmine, Marguerite, the French word for daisy, Iris. Okay, that's a lot of names, and we're done with English. Okay, so we've done native, and then we did English. Now we're going to do Far Eastern names using Chinese. By the way, this one got way more complicated than I was anticipating. Now, when I came to Taiwan, they needed a Chinese name for records. So they gave a Chineseified version of my name following the Chinese pattern. Usually one character for your surname. In my case, Ge for Gordon. The surname goes first in Chinese, and also in Japanese and Korean. Then it's usually one or two characters for your given name. In my case, Aide for Ed. The given name goes last. I told them I didn't like that. Ge Aide, lame sounding name. I wanted to choose a cool sounding name like Ancient Dragon or Tiger's Claws or something. No dice, it had to be descriptive. So, Ge Aide. By the way, people here have a very difficult time saying my name. Whether Ed, they say Ede, or Edward, they say Edward or Edward. They always have vowels with the consonants. So, in Chinese names, surnames go first, given names last. So, let's talk about surnames first. The stereotype in the West is that so many Chinese have the same surname. Li, Wang, Chang, Chen, Wu, Yang. There is some truth to that. Just the first three, Li, Wang, and Zhang, are a significant part of the population. We're talking over 300 million people, or over 20% of the Chinese population in the world. Compare that with English, individual surnames at over 45,000. The most popular ones: Smith, Johnson, Jones, Williams, Taylor, Brown, Miller, Davis, all between less than 0.5% and just over 1%. Just as a little aside here, in a recent US census, now this is a very multicultural society, so it's not all English names, it said there were 6.3 million surnames, although 62% of those were reported only one time. But still, that's well over 2 million. Okay, so you compare that with Chinese names. In fact, there are between 4,000 and 7,000 Chinese surnames. But just the top 10 surnames are about 40% of the population, and the top 100 are between 85 and 87% of the population. So relatively speaking, not that many. A lot of the common surnames originated from ancient states, noble families, or royal lineages from past dynasties. For example, Li, one of the most common surnames, comes from the Tang dynasty from the years 618 to 907. The family name was Li. The most common meaning is plum tree, but also it means reason, right, like ritual, beautiful, power, benefit, depending on which character is used. They all have the same sound, but they're different characters. Or Wang, the most common surname. This comes from the time of the Qin dynasty, from 221 to 206 BC. It was the name of noble families around this time. Wang means king. And I read that it might go even further back to the Zhou dynasty. or ruling houses of states like Qi. The ancient Chinese were matrilineal, from the mother's line, as compared to patrilineal, from the father's line. Because you know for sure the person came from that woman, but you can't be sure that it came from a certain man. Ancient Jews also had the same way of doing it, following the mother's line. Children belonged to the mother's clan. Later, the patrilineal line was added. So family name or surname is Xing Shi, with Xing meaning born from a woman, related to the mother's side, and Shi related to the father's side. But people just say Xing for the surname now. So ancient Chinese surnames came from the clan of the mother, and apparently there are only 8 of them. I'll try and read them out. Ren, Si, Yun, Yao, Ying, Zhi, Jiang, Gui. If there are any Chinese speakers listening out there, I probably butchered the names. It's just really hard as an English speaker to do Chinese, especially with the intonations. So, sorry. Then later, the father's lineage, or house, like the House of Windsor, Shi, became more important. So both names were used until about the Warring States period. Now, Warring States period is exactly what it says. There were several states and everybody was fighting everybody. This is before the first emperor conquered all of them and united China. I'll talk a bit about him later. Now, given names are even more complicated. If you think about it, not many surnames, so more emphasis on the given names. Ancient Chinese had several names, up to 5 for a single person. They had a birth name, a childhood or school name, a courtesy name, a chosen or self-chosen name, and even posthumous or temple names. The birth name, Ming, only family or elders could use it. If others called them this, it was disrespectful, even insulting. Like we're gonna fight now, insulting. Like saying something about your mother in other cultures. Second, you had your childhood name or your school name, Xunming or Xueming. Third was your courtesy name, or Zi, when you came of age, when you became an adult, maybe 20 years or so. This one is respectful and is the one mainly used in public. Your peers and younger people can use it. The fourth is your self-chosen name, Hao. This is a name you give to yourself, like an artistic name or a poetic name. Maybe I could use this and get that ancient dragon name. And the fifth kind are posthumous or temple names, given to rulers, high officials, or scholars, like Zi for wise or revered scholars, like Confucius. Gongzi. Gongzi is the name of Confucius in Chinese. Zi, or Di for emperors, like Qin Shi Huang Di. Di is for emperor. They are usually given after death and are about achievements during their lives. Now, emperors had a whole pile of names associated with them, and they didn't really follow the same rules as everybody else. So they had the surname, the given name, the courtesy name. They also had posthumous and temple names, and they even had era names, which were used to determine time. It's kind of like a calendar dating system. Like we have the year 0, and then we have BCE and CE before Common Era and Common Era, as is used now. It used to be BC, before Christ, and AD, Anno Domini, because of Christian heritage. I remember when I was younger, some people thought AD meant after death, like after Jesus died. No. Anno Domini, the year of our Lord. So we're now in the year 2026. But they used an emperor's era names. And some had more than one, like a lot more than one. So it wasn't just the 5th or the 20th year of the reign of such and such an emperor. It was the year 5 of that era. Now they don't use this in mainland China anymore, but they sort of do in Japan and Taiwan. Japan still has an emperor. And in Taiwan, it's the year the start of the Republic of China. So now the year 115. All right, a little side note, speaking about emperors, probably the most famous one is the first emperor of China, Qin Shi Huang Di. I mentioned I'd speak a little bit about him. Now the name of the country in English comes from his name, Qin, China. But his family name wasn't Qin. That's the name of the dynasty and his home state or ethnic group. Shi means first or beginning, Huang means august or splendid, Di means divine ruler or god and refers to the emperors. I guess they thought very highly of themselves. So together, the first sovereign emperor of Qin, or China, to signify his supremacy over earlier mythological kings. They were only King Wang. His birth name was Ying Zheng. He was son of the king of Qin. Born in the Qin state of Zhao, he was often called Zhao Zheng in his youth. Remember, Qin was one of the warring states. Each of them had their own kings or nobles. He ascended the throne of the Qin state at age 13 with the title King Zheng of Qin. Later, he conquered all the other states and unified China and got the name he is famous for, Qin Shi Huang Di. In the future, I may do an episode about Chinese dynasties. Let me know in the comments below if you'd like to hear about that. All right, back to given names. Some given names in a family can come from a famous poem, say by a famous sage like the best known one, Gongzi, Confucius, or others like Du Fu or Lao Tzu. Parents could choose characters from a famous poem and then make that the name of their child. Some were even generational. So for the first generation, you take the first character of the poem, and all the children have that character together with another one as their given name, boy or girl. So all the children of that generation have the same first character with a different second character for their given name. For the second generation, you take the second character of the poem. All the children have that second character along with a different character together as their given name. The same thing for the third, for the fourth, etc. Whoa, you end up with only one character you can choose for your kid's name. Another way to give names was to try and balance the elements. In Chinese tradition, there are 5 elements: metal, wood, fire, water, earth. The first one, metal, Qin. The second, wood, Mu. The third, water, Shui. The fourth, fire, Huo. The fifth, earth, Tu. If the child was thought to be weak or lacking in a certain element, parents could use the part of that character with that element in their name, and this would balance things. Don't ask me what those elements meant regarding a person's character. I've already dived way deeper into this than I planned to. You can look it up if you're interested. There were even people whose job it was to choose an auspicious name for a child. Yeah, you hire them to help give you a good name for your child. Now, I figured this practice would have died out, but apparently it's alive and well, thriving even, doing the same job they used to do in ancient times. There are modern, professional naming services, complete with websites, naming consultants, experts in feng shui and fortune telling, who analyze a baby's bazi, 8 characters that represent the exact time a baby is born. They identify missing elements, wood, fire, water, and select characters that incorporate these elements to restore balance. Private consultations can cost between 400 renminbi to over 10,000. That's like $1,500. There are even English naming consultants that choose a name that projects a positive image to Westerners. One last thing. In ancient China, it was considered taboo or rude or disrespectful to use the same name as your parents or a revered figure or ancestor. In ancient times, this was even sometimes legally punishable. This places them on the same hierarchical plane as an ancestor, which disrupts traditional social order. This attitude even persists until now. Ancestor worship, or actually worship probably has the wrong connotation, more like ancestor veneration, is still widely practiced until today. Even having holidays like Tomb Sweeping Day or Spring Festival, where families travel to ancestral hometowns, clean graves, and make offerings like food, drink, incense. They'll burn copied money or objects, but not real money, or even things like replicated paper computers or other objects these days. So children's names have to be different. No Henry VIII, Elizabeth II, Charles III, or Pope John Paul II, and definitely no junior and senior. Junior? What are you doing? This practice of not having the same name still persists to this day, though not to the same degree as in ancient times. Modern Chinese naming has largely abandoned complex ancient systems in favor of simple 2 or 3 character ones. Xing Ming, surname and given name, especially since the 1950s and 60s. I'm assuming after the Great Leap Forward and the Cultural Revolution. Okay, we'll stop here. So far, we've seen how meaning has faded in some places and maybe endured a bit more in others. In the next part, I'll move into Middle Eastern naming traditions. Persian, Arabic, and Jewish, where names have stayed tied to lineage, faith, and belief for far longer. If you like this video and want to see more, please hit like and especially subscribe. It will really help my channel to grow. Or if you want to request a story about a specific thing, please write a comment below. Thanks, and see you in the next one.